Welcome back to another episode of Guide Through Grief. I am your host, Tom Van Ness, and with me is our co-host, back again, Mr. Bob Woosley. Hello, Bob.
Hello, Tom.
So we, just to catch some of our listeners up, if they haven't gone back and listened to past episodes yet, the first couple episodes were my story and a little bit of my journey, more of the immediate impact of my grief and where it came from. What we're doing now are going through different parts of my grief and different significant times that I experienced. And those experiences and stories are going to be centered around a certain topic. And these topics we will continue to see in further episodes down the line as we continue to interview more people and their grief journey through various forms and origins of grief. So today's topic is kind of centered around loneliness or being alone. It's a topic that fooled me a lot because I thought I had a handle of it and a handle on it, to only find out I was probably running from it and had no idea how to deal with it. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Bob, who's going to help guide our conversation today as our co-host and kind of be the person guiding our conversation today. So Bob, welcome back. Thanks again for being here. Really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. And I think it's important to know who Leslie was to you so that we can understand a little bit about what being alone and not with her was like. So tell me what Leslie meant to you, to your boys.
Yeah. So I think every married couple, I think, has their own unique interaction and dance and story and how the little nuances of how they work. And, the best I can kind of describe it is the three houses Leslie and I lived in, we remodeled and lived in during the remodel. And we never wanted to kill each other. So that was always, I think, a rarity. And we did very well with it. I brought to the table kind of the vision and the idea and what we could do. Leslie was able to swing some reality to it and then make it look pretty. And so we were just a nice yin and a yang, where I was weak, she was able to pick up that ball. And where she wasn't the strongest, I was able to pick up that ball. And we did it in very non-traditional ways. I was the cook of the house and loved going to the grocery store. That was just my thing and loved it. So we got to talk about the differences of things we liked and were able to lean on each other and communicate with that. So with our house, with our boys, she was very much the captain of the ship. She kind of said, here's what I would like to get done. Here's where I see our family going. Here's what I want for our boys. And it was awesome to be able to contribute to that goal that we both liked, but she was able to kind of see that or know what she wanted. And I was able to structure that vision and make it a reality.
So you were a good team.
Yeah, we were a great team. Yeah, that was a very long-winded way to say.
No, and, great teams work really well together until they're no longer together and somebody's missing. So tell me a little bit about what were the obvious things that were missing early on, and then any thoughts that you have for people watching this, or things to maybe questions to ask themselves so that they're aware of that loneliness and able to call it out and able to address it healthily.
Yes, I mean every situation is going to be a little bit different. Managing the house and some of the day-to-day things did not seem very overwhelming because Leslie traveled so much. she was gone 4 months out of the year, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending. So, and I like doing the cooking and like going to the grocery store. So we had well-balanced meals. We had a joy in cooking and spending time in the kitchen and, being able to talk and catch up on our day. So some of the balance was when because we both worked in the broadcast industry, we were able to speak a certain language and understand exactly what our joys and our pains were in our job and in an industry. And so one part where it became a big struggle was like getting home and not having anyone to talk to. Like it's just very simple. Like you think about, I can call a friend and talk to a friend. And I had a buddy who lived in Florida, still does. He's one of my best. I talked to him at some stints like every day for weeks, but it was nowhere near the conversations you get to have with your spouse in those moments and the times you expected it, and being able to unload about your day and have them understand just the impact that meant in the bigger picture of things.
So where else did you find the loneliness? I'm sure raising
Oh,
children is a challenge. My wife and I, the yin and the yang, the good team, you know, one person does this, one person does that. Were you even aware in the moment of what you were missing, or was it one of those things where it was like became obvious, well on down the road, a year or two later?
it was later down the road I realized I was only fooling myself. I recognized it in like the first year, in the highest of highs and lowest of lows. I think I was in more survival mode.
Mhm.
So I didn't think too much of like the loneliness. It was more of like, how do I get the boys to school? How do we get the sports stuff done? How do we get like the other things? Like, how do we keep this train moving? Um, but when the boys did something successful, when they had like a great soccer game, or when they brought home a good report card, or we had a birthday party, like any of those like happy moments were very lonely because you had no one to experience them with.
So what did you do?
Still, but I try to kind of not keep it to myself. It seems to come up more naturally now. At some point, I still cry or have a tear, like on some of those really happy moments. Like my oldest just had his 5th grade play, and the whole class did amazing, and my son did amazing. And after it all got done, we were driving back and pulling out of the parking lot, and our house we had moved from was just like a block and a half from where the play was, and they were talking about how much fun it was, and I just had tears going down my cheek, but felt alone, because I just wanted to like put my hand over on the passenger seat, like where she would be, and like just put my hand on her leg to just like, this is our family. Like, look how great we were tonight.
And it's not. It's not possible.
Yeah, yeah. The being a great family is still.
Okay, tell me about that.
Um, I think that's just where I'm at. Coming, the 2-year anniversary is in less than 2 weeks from when we're sitting here today, and we'll talk about it in a later episode. And I've talked about it a little bit before, but it's like the power of the word "and," or like just the word "and" is so much more powerful now in some contexts, because we're not going to have the family the boys are going to see around them with all of their classmates.
Mhm.
No matter staying single or getting remarried, it's just not going to be the same family. But I can be sad, and feel upset, and all of those kinds of tones in those moments. And I can be happy that the boys want to be in those plays and they're smiling. And the three of us are pulling out of the parking lot laughing and talking about like how funny this line was and how funny that was. We weren't pulling out of the parking lot crying because mom wasn't there. That's just what's going on kind of like in the head of processing grief. So it was just understanding that I think until you go through some type of loss, whether that's losing someone really close to you that is your yang, or sibling, or maybe like losing all of your financial being, losing your health, getting diagnosed with cancer. Like those are moments where you are forced to see the good and the bad and notice the word that separated those two.
Yeah. And
Yeah. And we have to find a way for our brains to balance both.
so the first year you weren't even cognitive or conscious of the aloneness, or were you?
The loneliness I associated with being like physically alone.
Got it.
So I surrounded like the boys and I had 5 or 6 what we called backyard sessions in 2023 and 2024, like in the summer months, where we just had big barbecues on Friday or Saturday and invited as many people as we knew in the neighborhood, or from the boys' soccer teams, baseball team, whatever they were. Just try to have people over and hang out and use the kitchen that we have because we remodeled it to entertain. And we have the backyard that we always saw kids running around and playing, different games in, and a fire pit to sit around and make s'mores, and like all of the dreams we had to fulfill as a family, I wanted to still try to reach and accomplish. And I thought that was the right thing to do. But it was really pushing back and delaying what we inevitably have to do when we go through grief. And that is sitting alone in your own feelings and understanding the silence, the pain, the heartbreak, what is never coming back.
You so eloquently shared that it's sitting in the proverbial shit and smelling it to understand it and why it needs to happen. Talk about that. I think that is
Mhm.
probably a good statement to come out of your mouth because it were words that you shared with me, and I think it's powerful for people to hear.
Yeah, it was. So I think when I heard that first, it was from my therapist,
Oh, cool.
and it was probably because I described it as like I just, I think I sat in my own shit. Like it smelled. I didn't like it. I got away. Like I was. I think I gave it the name shit. Can't necessarily remember if he did or I did, but nonetheless, I think at this point, um, we did barbecues. Boys had sleepovers. We went to Disney. We went to Duke games. We went to Cub games. Family came in to visit. My friends from college would come in to visit for 4 or 5 days at a time. We just started doing all of these things to fill in our time. I started going to all these Dave concerts. I started sending the boys to their grandparents all the time because they just wanted to help however they could. And um, I was sitting in my therapist's office, and for one of the first times, like, didn't have anyone to talk to. My circle had gotten really small here at home with no family being around. And really one person that was, kind of like my sounding board, it was kind of like someone I really felt comfortable with, talking to and helped me guide through this, was stepping away, and all the other friends around here kind of gone back to their life. So instead of kind of re-engaging in my community that was supporting me at the start, I kind of started running away from like the lonely nights and the lonely days. And that was the other part of the loneliness that really started to settle in. I changed jobs, which was a lot to do in the first year and a half. But it was weird still working in the same industry after so much change in that, which is another topic another day. But the new job I had was a remote job that I still have today. So I take the boys to school, drop them off before 8. I'm out on appointments here and there throughout the day, but I work in my house where it's quiet. And then the boys get home and it's loud for a few hours, and they run off to soccer practices, and I turn into an Uber driver, and we come home and get them showered and fed and to bed. And then like from 8:30 to whenever I can fall asleep, it's quiet again. Like the boys are light sleepers, I feel like. So I kind of sit off in the corner of the house quietly, and some nights it's easier to fall asleep, and some nights, you get caught up in thoughts and emotions, and that's where I started to understand what I was avoiding. And in that, I don't know, I think in that loneliness, you can start to put names or understanding, behind those feelings and what you're missing. Leslie was so strong with the homework and like the boys' education. Like one of the funnier stories I share is like when Leslie and I met, one of the things we really clashed on were kids. I wanted 4, she wanted none. Uh, Once we had 2 boys, healthy boys, she was like, "You got your heir and your spare. We're done."
Well said.
Yeah, but I had the vision of wanting to have kids and wanting to have this family, and so once we did, she became the captain on here's how we're going to do it. And she was the one that did all of the reading and the studies and would come to the dinner table of like, here's what I would like to do, and I think what's important for the boys and for us to have this family. And not like she just came and cracked the whip and said, this is what we're going to do. Like it was a very team oriented approach of, she just didn't mind doing the legwork.
That's cool. So when my dad passed away, I was in high school, and I think that something that everybody who's gone through the loss of a loved one sees is the reality of in the moment, the community is just everywhere. There's more food than you could ever eat. There's more people than you could ever talk to. There's just a lot of community.
Mm-hmm.
And then a month passes, fewer people, another month passes, fewer people. Um, and all of a sudden, I remember my mom being faced with the fact that the couples that were friends of hers, she was like, the fifth wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever experience that type of a situation? Was that something that was real? Because I think a lot of the listeners will probably, if they were in a marriage situation and their spouse passed, would be able to relate to that. But did you ever go through something like that where all of a sudden it was like you realized one day, like, yeah, I might be looking for a new group of friends. I might be in a different position. I might, I know you filled it up with your summer parties and going to Dave shows and, doing all that stuff. But is that an experience that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Um, I was really lucky to live in the neighborhood that I do, because the boys have so many friends that are brothers. So therefore, like the brothers are friends with the brothers, and the parents were just, and we all live within a couple hundred yards of each other. Like our neighborhood clicks pretty strong, and um, I've never felt like a third wheel or a fifth wheel. I think some of that answer comes from our experiences when my mom became widowed. One of her good friends like showed up every night, virtually 5 or 6 nights a week, like almost a year, and just sat in the living room with my mom. Like if there was nights she needed to talk, they talked. If there was nights where they just sat there, they sat there. If there was nights where they cried, they cried. Um, I really wanted that. I really missed the connection of being able to share my feelings with my wife. And that only was compounded with the grief. So it was, I don't think I ever felt guilty for being like a third wheel. And maybe sometimes because I was like creating a lot of the events. So it's like, however many we get to come here, more that they come, the less I feel like the odd one out. That's where my friend Seth, I think, was such an important friend for me in some of my real dark moments when I really had to sit in my shit and smell what I had been avoiding. You know, it's like if you want any kind of analogy of just how foul it got, it's like having that thing in the Tupperware, you know, like leftovers, fish,
Science project.
cheese, and put in the Tupperware, and like you forget to put it in the fridge. It's in the back of the cabinet. Thank goodness it's good Tupperware because the smell didn't leak.
Hmm.
But you find it like months later, almost a year later, you have to open the lid. You have to open it to dump it out, or when you throw it in the trash can, the lid's going to pop open and that smell's going to get out. It's either going to seep through and it's going to cause damage when it does. That's what happens when you don't address the grief. That mold and that smell and that stink just builds up, and it will ruin you, and it will ruin like the circle that you do have around you. Um, it comes out in forms of anger and cutting your, like for me, it wasn't anger, but it was more like I just continued to cut myself off from more and more people, and just kept making my circle smaller. Um, I did things like just 5 months ago. So we're talking like almost a year and a half after my wife passed away. Um, it's the same day I actually started working out. I told my mom I stopped talking to her as much as possible about my issues and pains and problems because my boys were never going to have a mom to talk to about their problems. So why should I? Like that was the justification I gave myself, instead of like, I did that because the first couple times I had conversations with my mom, I got done with them and felt sad that my boys weren't going to be able to have that at 40 years old or 30 years old. So I just ran from that feeling and never wanting it again. But once I sat in the shit and smelled it, you understand what those feelings mean
Hmm.
and appreciations for those feelings. And not that you go hunting for a new partner or a new friend or a new group or a new neighborhood to fulfill that. You just honor that. Like for me, they're just kind of scars um, that I now recognize and I'm not scared to have and own, talk about.
So once you notice those scars, and you're an extremely positive individual, do you just kind of pack them away and say, "Well, that's something good to learn," and kind of laugh about it, or do you try to? I know you're doing this podcast and trying to put it in motion for others, but what else have you done?
Yeah, so to address the loneliness, and once I started realizing it, um, I did a couple key things to combat it. And some of it was from the help of my therapist, and some of it was just rolling up the sleeves and doing the work I felt like I could do. And one of those things I knew that I could do and needed to do was re-engage myself in the and that community is not just like the town I live in. Like that's just communities, like of things you're doing and interested in. Trying to get back to your monthly meeting and re-engaging in church. And the boys and I have kind of, you know, picked one or two churches that we're going to every week, no matter what, just so we can get to know the other people in the parish and the other families, and trying to get re-engaged with like the boys' soccer teams and the parents on the sidelines instead of just like sitting in my car during practice or during tournament games, like going back out on the sideline. Uh, I got re-engaged with Rotary, um, and making myself go to all the weekly meetings. And in 2 years, I um, was elected and approved to be the club's president, which I've been the club president before in Quincy. My my new employer had me join the Morton Chamber so I could have more events to do in the business community here. And those are all things I love to do. And I'm getting to meet more people and finding more people to connect with and have friendships with that are natural and appreciative for what everyone brings to the table, and it's reciprocal. And doing it at the gym, uh, joined a gym and running, and a couple dads from the neighborhood. We don't have any kind of run club. We sometimes run by ourselves. We sometimes get lucky enough where our schedules meet up. A couple of us are doing a 10K or a half marathon in Nashville in a month. So those are all just different communities I've re-engaged with that doesn't completely take away the loneliness. It doesn't. Like there's still like the physical touch with Leslie that I miss. Physical touch in just a relationship. Um, like it just sucks to sit in a house by yourself. Um, there's a couple random times where the boys will go off with the grandparents, and then I'll just be in this house for like a whole weekend. And I try to push myself now to not like stay in the house and like board up the house. Like, don't try to plan a trip. Don't try to have a party. Um, this year, we're trying to invite individual families over, like for a Friday or Saturday night dinner. So instead of having a bunch of families over that we don't really get to connect with and talk to, we get to have better, solid one on one time with new families that we get to see across town. And we've always wanted a chance to hang out more with or show our appreciation for with how they've helped our family and have them over for dinner.
So looking back over the last 2 years, when you were sitting in your proverbial crap, do you have any regrets, or do you feel like there's anybody that you've harmed, and what have you done to kind of reach out and make that right? Or is that something that is kind of on the agenda? I know you said that your conversations with your mom changed a little bit. Where's that now? Are there any other people that, you know, might have felt the wrath of your loneliness when you didn't realize that it even existed, or anything like that that you can speak to? Because I think
Yeah.
everybody that's gone through it probably looks back and is like, shit, I did not even realize that I might have pushed people away
Mhm.
or caused harm or done something. And what's a good suggestion on, or, stories that you
Yeah.
have of things that you've done to kind of re-engage or apologize or make things right?
Yeah, I mean, I think with my mom, I feel like my mom and I are in a great place. When I told her that, she was kind of surprised. She had no idea how where my struggles were. That's just how good I was at hiding them. I wasn't necessarily mean or cutting her off. I still talked to her, but I was like, "Yeah, things are good. Boys are getting good grades. We're running off doing this and that. Look at all our happy pictures." Like our social media was like the key to like put on the happy face. Like no one lived near us, but they can see all these great pictures that I can sit at night and pick which one I want to pose that shows all three of us smiling and looking great. So be careful using that social media as um, like your mask. Super easy to, not only like the scrolling and like wasting your time and getting lost in that, but like that can easily become a crutch of like making you believe you feel that. It's when you start seeing all of the likes and the comments of the great things, like it just gets you thinking, yeah, I guess I'm not doing that bad. I guess we are doing okay. I'll just keep going this way.
Social media confirmation bias.
Yeah, no, 100%.
You
It's and
start to
it's
believe it.
yeah, no, 100%. You know, uh, I'm going to have a guest on in season 3 that is in the same situation as myself, and we're going to talk about one topic we're going to talk about is as dads, like on the social media comments, and then the comments like even around town of like, "You're such a super dad." Like you're like hashtag super dad. Like great. You just like praise for doing like what we should do. We don't. It's just a weird thing, knowing that no one means it that way.
No, but it feels good, and you can convince yourself that you're on the other side and
Hmm.
blindsided by the kids heading to the grandparents, and you're sitting here by yourself, and you're like, "Well, I'm not going to post this tonight
Yeah.
because it's pretty miserable."
Hmm. And then, so I think we talked about grief share a little bit, and I'll say again, one of the most important things I learned in grief share that I think plays out in the loneliness, or can, like especially when you talk about wrath of hurting other people in this scenario. Um, if you're going through grief, it's really hard to ask for help and ask for what you need. It is, and especially if you're the kind of person who never asks for help, you're, I don't even know the analogy to put next to it. It's the hardest thing to accept. It has absolutely been the hardest thing to accept, of like asking for help and taking it. And people that go through grief, what they don't do well enough until it's too late is ask for exactly what they need. And I think that's also out of your friendships and your relationships. So many of the people around you want to help, they want to do something, but a lot of times they just don't know what to do. Like you could say, I need like a deck of red playing cards, a 6-pack of Diet Pepsi, and a bag of white cheddar popcorn. And will you come over and play, you know, poker tonight? And you would have 10 friends that would be lined up at your door with that exact thing if that's what you said out loud or posted on your social media, whatever it may be. But we're so scared to ask for it. And then we just sit there sad that no one just knows us good enough to bring over those 3 things and do that with us. And then we get pissed. We
Is
get
it easy to almost
mad.
get addicted to the loneliness? Like, is there a little bit of a piece of that that is
No,
self-soothing?
not for me. I still struggle with it today. Like, I'm sitting here like, Tom, I need to take less trips in 2025. Like, and I don't feel like I've been able to do that yet. Like, I feel like I'm taking more responsible trips. Like, like the boys and I are like off trying to visit national parks and have our national passport book. We just got back from spring break. Like, we drove a round trip 30 plus hours and got 2 national parks knocked off our list. Like, it's spring break. You're going to do something fun, but there's just always stuff going on. I think it's just harder as a single parent, especially with my kids so young. To sit in it.
You're also an extrovert, am I right?
Yeah.
So you like being out and you like the noise and you like the social and
I feel like I heal better. What an idle mind is the devil's playground. Like, I feel very idle here.
yeah, and I'm an extrovert as well, and I think you and I both share the nature of leaning in and helping others.
Mhm.
I don't even know how to put it into how it would be if for someone who's an introvert. Is it easier to be alone because that tends to be an okay thing, or is it just and that's just a random question that comes to my brain is how would an introvert go through this differently than an extrovert? And I don't know that you and I can answer that because we aren't, but I would imagine sometimes the alone, which is difficult for no matter how you're wired, might be more difficult for someone like you because like having people around.
Yeah, I think there were moments where I had like an introvertness or where I think no matter what kind of personality you are, um, there's some decisions you can make which can um, propel you into loneliness because if it is like with drugs and alcohol, you really start cutting off everyone from yourself with some of those decisions. And you end up being really alone and not knowing how to get out of that hole. Um, Compared to addressing your loneliness that you deal with on 7 nights a week after your kids get down. There's a loneliness of not having someone to talk to. There's the intimacy loneliness. There's a friendship loneliness. Like, everyone's going out for drinks, or better yet, like everyone's putting together a softball team or a kickball league. And for me to say yes, it's going to cost me $80 a week in babysitting. Like, I go to the gym in the winter, it was costing me $120 a week in babysitting to go to the gym. So I got really comfortable with running outside in the cold. Because I didn't even count my gym membership yet.
So let's go back to grief share. I've never heard of grief share.
Yeah.
You presented it, and it's like that's a
Yeah.
foreign concept. So I'd love to know what that is.
Yeah. So it's a national wide program. It's a weekly meeting, about 13 weeks, I think is what it was. There's a workbook that kind of poised questions and journaling and some resources, other information, spiritual based content. This was at a church that it met every week. I won't say it was it wasn't spirituality shoved down your throat by any means. But we went every week, went around kind of like a 10-minute hello, hi. We watched this video, usually about 30, 40 minutes in length.
And what was the content on the video?
Different topics every week.
Okay.
There's an episode we have here in the first season where I talk a little bit more and share some of the website and the URL. If you go out and Google Grief Share, you can find the nearest meeting place for you. But we do the video and then we go around and talk and share our feelings around that. Grief Share to me was something I did not want to go to every week. I actually tried to find excuses not to go because I didn't. At first, I had to remind myself every week, I don't care about other people's problems. I don't care about their grief. I care about mine, and I don't care to know about them. And I have to go sit for the next couple hours, pay a babysitter to be at home so I can like hear this, talk about it, and then go home late and sit in my quiet ass house. So I never wanted to go, but I walked out every week happy I went. And that's where I learned if we don't ask what we need and want, we hold resentment to the people that are closest to us. Because those are usually family and friends and loved ones that we expect to know us and just be able to show up. And I think another person I had this with was my middle sibling. I asked him to join me like on 12 Dave concerts. Like I took that advice, like literally called him up 12 times. And he couldn't go any of the times. Kind of like, come on, dude. Really? Like, now, grant, none of them were really close, but he suggested we like go on a golf trip. I'm like, yeah, I don't really golf. Like, it wasn't about like, it was about just being there. Like, I needed someone to be there with me, and we talked about it. Like, I eventually came out and told him, like, dude, this has bugged the hell out of me. Like, I needed you to say yes to this. I needed you to like come up one weekend and hang out, like just on a whim. At the end of that conversation, it's like, why don't I come up this weekend and hang out on a whim? I'm like, yeah, please. That's all you've ever had to do. And so I think we have to learn going through grief, it's okay to ask.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you're not from Central Illinois area, so your family's 2.5 hours away, and I've made the drive from Peoria to Quincy. It's maybe not as hard as Grief Share, but it's its own form of loneliness. Tell me a little bit about that, because I'm sure there's people all over the country that have moved away from home, faced the loss of a loved one, and once everybody heads back to their hometown, you're left without family. You've got friends around and community and others, but tell me a little bit about how not having family here created, a different kind of loneliness or alone, because it seems like you have a pretty close family and a pretty big one.
Yeah, it's a big family. I just, for some reason or another, probably more. Yeah, I'm sitting here and taking the blame for it. It's not all mine. I just wasn't very good at connecting.
Mm-hmm.
But I use things like social media as gates. Was more than happy to talk with people on Messenger or DMs. It was easy to not be emotional there. So I really didn't feel like I had family. Like I knew I had family. Like the grandparents were always up here with the boys, and that was kind of where I just kept that family circle and didn't allow it to go much more past that. I think in my scenario, it got really lonely because outside of the people I worked with, the people I had the most access to communication with were my two little boys under the age of 10. So there just wasn't a lot of adult conversation. And so when you find yourself in that situation, um, I had some friends that we talk and hang out with, um, mainly from the neighborhood. And that's that's where it was. I had my friend Seth, down in Florida, a couple fraternity brothers, Bartley and Scott that would, we'd text and call each other and chat, and a couple friends from Quincy who will be a part of season 2 on here, kind of playing your role. Were one of my closer friends that I was able to kind of connect with and be close with. Um, I think women may have in a better network, a stronger network of non-family members to find community in to help battle that loneliness. Doesn't mean they're not going to go through it. I'm not trying to speak for them. I think about some of the moms in this neighborhood that I've gotten to know playing like the mom role for the boys of like just, hey, I got size 6 shoes. Does anyone like, I don't send that to the dads because all of the dads are going to take that text message and go look at the wife and say, do we need size 6 shoes? Like, so I've just learned like I text the moms some questions, so like I think whether you're male or female, what you eventually look for, whether you're ready for it or not, is also some kind of connection and ability to connect with someone of the opposite sex. If that's what you missed. Lesley and I had such great conversations. And they happened a lot of time after the boys went down. We'd watch TV, turn on a movie, be able to sit on the couch and talk for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then be able to call it a night, or talk while we were making dinner. So then you sit there at night figuring out, can I do that? Can I start going out and doing that with someone else? Am I comfortable doing that with someone else? I have to talk about all of this with someone else. You just,
Sure.
I think that's another big part of the loneliness that widows and widowers especially sit in some of that quietness and say, can I connect with someone else again? Can I love again? Am I deserving to be loved again?
I would imagine there's some that run right to it,
Mm-hmm.
jump into a new relationship and change, their life completely and never really deal with the challenges that existed. So, did you ever feel like just almost running to something?
I met people on virtual, Facebook groups and out on the road at like some Dave shows that were widows and widowers, and you know, for them, everyone's timing is different of what they need. Um, I did find a need to have. I wanted to have a female I could connect and feel comfortable communicating with. I wanted that again. I needed that again. But I also knew that the boys were more important. So I am not saying to other parents out there that have gone through what I've gone through that you are wrong. My position was the boys went to bed one night and never saw their mom again. And I had a real problem accepting the fact that I would be willing to bring someone new into our dynamic, and then one day they'd be gone again if our relationship didn't work out.
So, how do you feel about that now? 2 years into it.
I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong. I think that happens. It does happen. I know it happens. Whenever you think it's been long enough, wait a little bit longer.
So you're still in the waiting phase?
No,
Okay.
no. I think from some past situation, I understand myself better. I understand. This is not any spin-off opportunity for a new podcast saying I understand the dating world. I understand how complicated and weird the dating world is. And that's where I stop trying to understand anything. But I'm a big communicator. And I think when I first was drawing up what I needed in that desire of a connection, of a relationship, of a partner, has evolved to where it was just here's what I need and what my boys need. And now, yeah, the partner's also going to need something in this, and there's going to be ways where we have to work together in what we need. So as I start to get to know someone or meet someone, what goes on in my head now is, do they respect my situation? Do they respect the boys? Do by chance have they ever gone through any personal trial or trauma themselves where they might understand some of this a little bit better? What levels are we very similar on? And that can speed up the time I might be willing to engage them more with my boys or with my family. With friends, I think is different. You know, probably a lot of people with friends kind of like soft sell. If they start talking to someone, if we're getting into that dating kind of world conversation of like getting out of the loneliness, like through dating, no matter what the time is, whether it's 6 months after. I know a person this last weekend whose husband passed away after a cancer diagnosis, and it's not even been 6 months, and they just remarried. And she absolutely did not want to be alone and could not do it alone with kids her age, and met a person that I also know, and they are absolutely head over heels. He is giving up, he's doing a lot to help there and be there for her. And I'm really excited for him. Like I think it's a great thing for him. I'm not that. I can't do that. Like that's just not going to be me at any point.
And I don't think there's any tried and true roadmap. I think
No.
every situation is different. And
my mom never wants to get remarried. My mom and dad were divorced when I was really young. My mom got remarried and was remarried from 98 to 2012 when he passed away. And she, to this day, says like he was my love. And I could never imagine anyone beating that. So everyone's going to be different.
they are.
And that is so okay.
Well, and I think the thing that I've seen with my mom when she remarried is it was a very different relationship. It wasn't my dad. Completely 180-degree difference. And, sometimes when you get to a certain age, it's more a matter of just having a companion, not the same like true love kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's got their own families, and more just how do we team up to make this work? I think that every situation is different, and I think everybody should give themselves freedom and permission. And I think, like you said, whether it's through grief share or counseling, or if you're in a faith-based world, turning it over to a higher power through prayer, whatever it is, I think it's important for people to give themselves permission to find their own best path forward when it comes to a relationship versus one way is the right way, one way is the wrong way. I think it's just, if it works for you, then it works for you. So
Yeah, it was. I don't know how she handled it, but if you can sit down and understand your feelings and what you're grieving and what you're missing and accepting that and coming to that reality and then ready for the next step, that is healthy,
very.
and some people can do it at different speeds than others. And I think the key to that is, I mean, even talking as a parent, I was on autopilot as a parent, for the first year after Leslie passed away. As I started to realize more that I was running away, I was like, oh, I'm just dumping all the homework on the babysitter. Like I just was telling the babysitter, as soon as the boys get home from school, sit down and do the homework with them. Like, so when I get home at night, I didn't have to worry about it. It was already done, finished in the binder, back in their book bag. I just didn't so the loneliness was more of just like, I didn't want to have to deal with their homework by myself. And so we're not just talking about like dating and finding that next connection. It's, going through all of those experiences without our partner alone and understanding what those experiences do to us and help us understand who we are and what opportunities ahead. Because I can promise you this, since November, so we're sitting here, it's like 5 months, almost 5 months later, I would have never sat down and thought about myself the way I have, by myself, alone, if this wouldn't have happened. From Leslie and the trials of like the next year and a half or 18 months, 20 months that led up to that point, like I wouldn't have done that. Like I wouldn't have sat down one day with Leslie. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna reinvent myself. I wouldn't have stopped talking to my mom. Like my mom I was probably closest with.
Mm-hmm.
I damn sure wouldn't have ran a half marathon. I made fun of people that ran. I was only going to run if I was being chased by a bear.
There you go.
Now I go out and run 3 to 5 miles a day just to move. So sitting in the loneliness is a scary, scary thing. You want to get biblical, like Jesus went in the woods for 40 days alone. He didn't go in with the disciples. He didn't go in with the village following him.
Mm-hmm.
But if we sit there and do the work, we are going to be better coming out of it. We're going to be stronger coming out of it. We're going to be ready to rejoin our communities through Rotary clubs and chambers and our neighborhoods and volunteering at the kids' schools.
Maybe even podcast.
Doing a podcast. All of those things. And yeah, it's lonely. It stinks. But there's someone watching and listening today that is like just probably reeling.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure what to do. And I didn't either. Like if you're watching, like I didn't know what to do. And it's a therapist, it's a priest, it's a best friend. It's just asking someone you trust for help. And you'll get there. Some people it takes a couple months, might take a couple years. I'm sitting on 2 years and I feel stronger than I was in the first. The second year I thought was harder than the first. but I'm wrapping up the second year feeling stronger than I have before.
My mom always describes it as the gift of the hell. We wouldn't choose to go through the hell no matter what. The situation isn't something that you would say, this. I'm so grateful I got to go through it. On the flip side, you know, 2 years down the road now, say 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, you, your boys, and whatever your life looks like will be stronger for having going through this. And I truly believe the gift of the hell is what you're talking about here, and it's walking through that loneliness and actually coming to an understanding of it, sitting in it, and recognizing, okay, this is what it is, and this is how I'm going to go forward. And you've had a lot of great, people, a lot of great things happen along the way, and I'm very proud that you are where you are, and I'm excited to see where this journey takes you. And everybody out there, everybody's journey is different, and I think the thing that you said about being willing to look at yourself and ask for what you need, which is so difficult for people these days. I take the highlight away of don't use that smoke screen of social media. I mean, it could be a sponge brownie and photograph as if it was the most wonderful tasting brownie in the world, and you throw it up on social media and say, this is the greatest brownie ever. And it's just not. It's not even a brownie. So I think there's a lot of good nuggets. Anything else you want to leave this with in the guidance of going through the loneliness?
No, I think we didn't talk a whole lot about the experiences of probably the reason of my career change and the loneliness that, like, it was a double-edged sword. And so maybe there'll be another time to talk about that, but it's I think a person's career can help or hurt that battle. As silly it is, I think the other piece of advice we'll talk about in another episode is try not to make any big life changes in that first year. And I think depending on the life change, people will say more. Switch careers, get in a new relationship, move homes, move towns, maybe even as far as like getting rid of clothes or other items. Waiting a year because you might be avoiding some of that loneliness, some of that grief, some of that reality that hasn't set in. And you're going to make decisions without truly knowing what you need. And it might be too late. So I think if there's any other piece of advice, wait, patience. Patience is a virtue. It's something that takes practice, but it's like when you're going through grief, you got to remember there's no finish line. Doesn't matter how fast you can think you can get through something, it'll still be there with you.
And it'll come back and hit you in the face at some point, and the more prepared you are now, sitting in it, as you said, more able you will be to recognize it, and you'll have strength and power to overcome whatever it is, learn from whatever it is, find gratitude in whatever it is, and not take the path of, the bad decisions that take you down the path of not moving forward and taking you back.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. You're 100% right. And I guess with all that said, it's nice to have you here today. So I didn't have to do this episode alone. When I did my first,
no pun intended.
No pun intended. When I first did my first 12 episodes, I was sitting right about where you were by myself down here. Before this wall, before these sound panels, was just at a desk with my phone selfie like this, doing it alone. And it felt very weird to talk about grief in such a big topic by myself. Mm-hmm. So thank you for being here and helping with this conversation, the other ones we've had and are going to continue to have. And very grateful for you, and very grateful for all of you listening and watching another episode of A Guide Through Grief. I am your guide, your host, Tom Van Ness. We look forward for you staying on for the next episode or coming back when you're ready and checking out any of our episodes. Download us, check us out on social media, and until next time, we'll see you then. Thanks. Have a good day.
Thank you for joining us today. I hope today's episode will help guide you forward. My goal for this podcast has always been to create a safe place for people who are navigating their grief journey to lean on one another and share their own experiences. I ask that you share, subscribe, like, and comment so we know how to best support you. Finally, we rely on listeners like you to help keep this journey going. Guide Through Grief is dependent on the support and contributions from you. Please consider supporting the show and our cause. Visit our social media pages or click the link in our description for more information. Thank you.